how do you deal with your productivity being at an all-time low after quitting stimulants? Because let's face it, I was struggling with this directly today. So I decided, you know what? I need to make a video on this. So if you've gotten sober off stimulants, first of all, I want to start out by saying something very important. I am genuinely proud of you. No, for real. Most people have no idea how hard it is to do that. Many people around us can't even stop drinking caffeine or energy drinks for 1 week. Yet some of us are dealing with much stronger stimulants every day. So let me give you a little bit of my backstory before I tell you the advice. So during my puberty years, I was consuming about 600 to 800 milligrams of caffeine every single day. Later on, taking 150 to 200 milligrams of Adderall every single day. When I ran out of Adderall, I would use methamphetamine just to keep that stimulation going. So I'm a recovering meth and Adderall addict. That level of stimulation really changes your mind, especially at a young age. So, getting where you are now, where you're completely sober, no caffeine, no nothing anymore, like I am, is a massive accomplishment, even if people around you do not understand it. And this is the first thing that I need to talk about. Why do people around you not understand what you're going through? So, most people around you have never had their brain pushed to those extreme levels of stimulation, let's put it point blank. So, they might drink coffee, maybe an energy drink, maybe no mental disorders underlying, but they never experienced the train wreck of this huge amount of dopamine and norepinephrine from these hardcore stimulants every single day. And when you stop using it, your brain doesn't instantly go back to normal. Your dopamine system has to rebuild and recalibrate, and that takes a lot of time. So during that time, you might notice things like lower motivation, slower thinking, difficulty with starting new tasks. I feel tired even after sleeping back then. Your chores will feel completely meaningless when you try to do stuff, and you'll be very irritable, very, very irritable. To someone who's never experienced stimulant addiction, those symptoms look like laziness, and they'll even accuse you, hey man, quit being so lazy, excuses, but they don't listen. That's part of your brain recovering. They would be the same way, maybe even worse. Now, why productivity feels so low after addiction? Well, stimulants artificially raise these dopamine levels so high in the brain. So those chemicals control things like your focus, your motivation, your mood, your energy, your reward system, your drive, your task initiation. That's like a big thing about stimulants. That's why I fell in love with them, due to my ADHD. And so when you're on stimulants, your brain learns to operate on a very high stimulated level. So when you remove these, your brain has to suddenly function in its natural dopamine levels again. For a lot of people, those levels are probably going to be a lot lower than normal, especially if you got hooked on them in the first place. So, this is why everyday tasks feel extremely difficult. And things that used to work easy, like doing chores, responsibilities like work, now feel completely meaningless, and they take 10 times the amount of effort. Just imagine this. Everything takes 10 times the amount of effort, however, everything feels way more meaningless. You're not going to do shit. Exactly. That's why we don't do anything. So how do you deal with this low productivity? This is the meat and bones of the video. So the most important thing to understand is that you cannot expect stimulant level productivity from a recovering brain. You just flat out can't. Second off, you gotta detach from your feelings. You're never gonna feel productive. You just won't. It'll be years from now before you feel productive again, okay? So instead of productivity, you have to just do it off pure discipline, okay? Give yourself some grace. Don't set too high of expectations. Recovery is not the time to expect peak productivity. You got to give your brain space to stabilize. Also, you need to break tasks into small steps. Instead of clean the kitchen, start with wash one plate. Screw it, wash one plate, rest for an hour. Wash one plate. ADHD and low dopamine brains also respond to clear, tiny actions a lot better. I've learned that. Add stimulation, to boring tasks, okay? Add music to doing, your room. You just gotta somehow add simulation, get creative with it. Now you need to focus on consistency, not intensity. Small progress, meaning 1% better every day, is a lot better than doing nothing. 5 is celebrate progress. Be proud of yourself and how far you've came. Okay, everything you do is now a bonus. You're sober. Remember that. You're not on this artificial machine. So how do you deal with the people that don't understand? Well, another difficult part of recovery is when people around you say things like, just push through it, or you're so lazy. I hate that one, man. Everyone has to do chores, man. You're no different. They aren't necessarily trying to hurt you, but it does hurt in the moment. Let's just face it. It makes us irate sometimes, but they just don't understand what your brain is going through, put it quite frank. You can't really be empathetic for something you don't understand. So you don't need everyone's understanding to keep moving forward. Remember that. This is your journey at the end of the day. Some people will never fully understand addiction, recovery, or any of that stuff unless they've experienced it themselves. And what matters most is that you know the progress that you made. That is really what matters at the end of the day. And I'll say it right here. I'll say it again. The truth about recovery also is if you manage to go months without stimulants after years of heavy use, you've already done something incredibly difficult. Your brain is still healing, your motivation systems are still recalibrating, and over time, as your dopamine system actually rebuilds itself, things like focus, energy, or productivity usually will come back naturally. Until then, you just got to be patient with yourself. Recovery isn't about quitting substances. What recovery really is about is relearning how to live and work with your natural brain again. And if you made it this far, you're already doing something most people wouldn't ever have the strength to do. So keep going. I'm proud of you.